I wanted to talk a little bit about Gone Girl, which you were in
Gone
just
Girl.
a little bit, but
Ooh.
you know, another great recent movie. So David Fincher, renowned for being sort of not hard to work with, but just he demands a lot of actors. So I was just curious about what your experience with him was.
I'm a gigantic David Fincher fan. In speaking of experiential stuff, right?
Yeah.
Unsleep No More and my lust for that. He did a movie called The Game, which Michael Douglas was in and Sean Penn, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies, and just the idea of a world where a game is happening to you and you can't stop it, and your phone rings or the fax machine spits out something, you know, look in the drawer on your left and inside is a box and there's a key, and I love that shit so much. So, so I loved The Game, and then I got wind that he wanted to meet with me for a part in Gone Girl. And Gone Girl was a really successful book. And so it freaked me out because it wasn't really an audition.
Yeah.
It was, he wants to go have lunch with you, which is kind of worse because you don't know what that means. Does that mean you kind of got the job and he wants to have lunch with you to just say welcome aboard, or is the lunch the audition?
Yeah.
So am I supposed to have lunch sort of as the character to show him that I can be this guy, or is that too stilted and then I'm not being myself? So I was really mindfucky about the lunch, but I think it was more a lunch to just make sure that he likes to work with people, it seems, who are effective and efficient in what they do. So we spent a lot of time working on the scenes preemptively, so around the table before we went and actually filmed it, so that while we're filming it, it's the creation almost like a painting. Like he wants everyone to do it pretty exactly the same way every time. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to, in that lunch, I think, just to sort of question my brain to make sure I wasn't super flighty and would be some kind of deficit for him. But he's exacting. Mm-hmm. He's famous for multiple takes, right? Yes. So you do 35, 40 takes of the same thing, but they do it in this really interesting kind of Tai Chi way, because you do the whole take. I'd enter the door, take off my jacket, set my keys in a little thing, walk in, see her in the room. We'd have a few lines of dialogue, and then I'd walk out to go change. Cut. Mm-hmm. And then he'd come and say, okay, the dolly needs to be faster, and this light needs to be changed, and Neil, you're doing that eyebrow thing, stop doing the eyebrow thing, and do this, and you got it, and you'd go put your jacket back on, get your keys, go back to the door, and action, go. No, they wouldn't mark it, they wouldn't take time, they wouldn't touch you up, you just do the scene again. And then cut, and he'd give you more notes, and then and rolling, action, and you do it again. And suddenly after 17, 25 times of that, you're in this sort of robotic thing. You finish the scene, you put on your jacket, you put your keys in your pocket, you think about your note, and you do it again, and you finish, and you take your you're not in this actor thing of, did you like it? Was that good? Was that, fuck, I didn't do good, right? You're just kind of in this weird zone of doing it over and over. The repetition eliminates isms and allows for a sort of simplicity, distillation to happen. So that was really fun to just take part of. Weird that it involved a really gory sex scene.
Yeah,
right.
I was gonna ask about that.
Because in the same way, David really wanted the sex scene to be exact. Mm-hmm. And understandably so, because they had 2 days to film it, and it needs to look passionate, and it needs to look sort of improvised, as sex is. But he didn't want us to flop onto the bed in a different position, because then it wouldn't be useful to him, because he couldn't edit it. Because if we flop back straight versus flop back to the side, then he has to choose one or the other. So we had to spend a whole, Rosamund and I had to spend a whole afternoon working through a sex scene, like moment to moment. And he designed it, and then it was down to, so my pants are, oh, you can see my ass, and I'm standing in front of you, and you're blowing me, and how many? And he's like, I want 1, 2, 3, like numbered.
Yeah.
And then he really liked, and then I want to hear this. He wanted like a afterwards. And then and then down and thrusting and like climaxing, and that's when the knife wound happens. And so we had to just practice that, which is awkward and weird, but not just practice it until we think we got it. Like we had to, for hours, we would film and practice it and film it and film it and film it and laugh and think this is the strange, what is our lives? What have our lives come to in this seedy soundstage? We're just rehearsing porn for hours. And then we would finally set, after 2 hours, we pretty much knew exactly how it was going to go. We went and told him that, you know, and he was filming a scene with Ben Affleck. So he comes to watch the scene to see how we're doing, and so does Ben. So we get to show off. While David Fincher and Ben Affleck are both sitting there watching the whole thing. That was weird. But fun. Yeah. I mean, I got it because he was asking us to do a very specific thing, right? Which was have unbridled sex, and my character was really into her, right? So it was very overwhelmed with great precision. And those two things don't often go together. So we had to spend a lot of time doing that. And you'd go right up to blood work, and then you'd stop. And once he was happy with it, then we'd start right from before, and we'd do all the blood work. And they filmed it in, they replicated the bedroom set on a sound stage. And so you'd film it. And so my throat would get slit, and I would just gushing blood everywhere, and then die, and she'd leave, and then they'd cut. And then the walls would disappear. The bed would roll away. They had multiples of bed, multiple rug, multiple walls. We would go shower, get coated with this barrier cream so that we didn't get stains on red stained, and then we'd do it again. And you just shower and rinse and repeat. But that was cool. It was weird to die. Dying is a hard thing to do on camera because you don't have much experience in it. And he wanted to make sure that when your throat gets slit, how do you die? Which is a very interesting question, right? Because it wouldn't hurt, do you know? It would, those carotid arteries, right, would get slit, and then, especially right after having reached orgasm, where you're flush anyway, right? And then all of a sudden you would probably just be confused and feel wetness and not be sure. And by the time you recognize that that was coming from yourself, you're losing blood to your brain, and you're so confused while it's happening, but it's not like gutter. It's sort of, I don't know, it was a very interesting thing to try and do the way he wanted it. Because normally you just kind of generic choking to death, but he was very exacting on how one would die that way. So that was weird.